uses. It's something that I think we all believe, we understand the attributes of. It comes in different plies, it has different shapes, but ultimately this roll of toilet paper, I think we can all agree, is not very helpful. First of all, it wouldn't fit through most of our front doors, so shopping for it would be really difficult. And what really matters here is that toilet paper in this size is very unhelpful. This size, however, is what we're used to and is something that we can make use of. This is how I feel about the term big data. Big data equals something that in its current form factor is not very useful. So we need to think about how big is big data, how helpful is big data, and come up with the answer to that. And once we know the answer to that, then we can talk about how to make more intelligent decisions on top of data. So I don't know if you know, but there's a toilet paper encyclopedia on the internet. And so I went through that and found some interesting statistics. This is all crowdsourced information. And there's everything from whether you're a roller or a buncher to something that I would say is getting towards the more useful side of making use of data, which useful is in the eyes of the beholder, of course. So although we may care as consumers about the other information, we potentially aren't going to look at the data as though a company like Charmin or Procter & Gamble, somebody that sells toilet paper, would. And so with that, I want to make an analogy to the security world and what we think of as making use of data, in that we're not talking about big data just for the sake of understanding cybersecurity at an astronomically high level that no one really can use. We're talking about making better decisions in our organizations. Now, if your organization is a big security company, then data is at a different scale, but my presentation is going to be making decisions at the organization level. How can I understand what's happening at incident response and how well I'm doing it and who's attacking me, why the threat keeps on going after the HR group versus my executive team. Those are decisions that maybe don't require big data but do require data analytics. So big companies run their business on big data, but I would argue that the size of the data isn't as important as the decisions that are being made. So how do you decide what the value of the data is? Well, there's another term being used synonymously with big data called threat intelligence. And so most in this room hopefully agree, because we're smart, that threat intelligence is the result of producing a data and analytic process to come up with something that means something. And Rick Holland, who talks a lot about threat intelligence, he's a Forrester analyst, breaks down the value and the attributes of value of threat intelligence into those 6 terms: accuracy, align with your requirements, integrated, predictive, relevant, tailored, and timely. So big data is the unrefined coal that's coming into the manufacturing process, and out the other end, you want to measure the diamonds you're creating against those attributes. Big data is great, but this is my no kidding slide. How many of you in this room store your incident data in spreadsheets? Come on. All right, at least one person stores their. So I talk to the biggest companies in the world, and they store their data in spreadsheets. So if you guys are really, really advanced, you're probably storing, let me guess, in ticketing systems. So I'm not setting you up for failure here. I know state of the art is screwed up right now. The biggest way that people communicate about security matters in the business today, email. The way that they store the indicators and find them again in subsequent incidents, email search. maybe if they're really advanced, they have an Excel spreadsheet that they have created a pivot table on. I don't know about you, but I use Outlook and Mac Mail, and neither search works very well. And the bigger the data set becomes, the harder it works and doesn't produce any answers. So this, being what we do today, is having a major impact on our ability to make decisions in a predictive way, and just the simple stuff, incident response, security operations. These are things that move quickly, and we can't afford to communicate using 30-year-old technology. So enter big data. Most of you are looking at big data as the merger of all this information from all these sources, and most important of which is you don't know what you're going to use it for. So that's my my frequent conversation with customers, and that they say, I want to put all my data in this database, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but someday I'm going to figure that out. Well, putting my developer hat on, it doesn't work that way. You have to figure out what the data is going to be. You have to figure out the ontology. You have to figure out your use cases first, because the big data space is super complicated. You need different technologies for different things. You need different developers to build on top of them different use cases. So think twice before saying, hey, my incident responder has a little bit of time in between fighting incidents, so they're going to build a big data platform. This is really hard stuff, and it's not to say that I don't like building things with the best of them, but you know, focus on the small data first and making sense of that before you jump into a big data platform. So small data or medium-sized data, again, I don't know how to define big data. Is it millions of records? Is it tens of millions? Or is it hundreds? Who knows? But what is important is that this problem has happened in every other part of the business. Every other part of the business makes decisions based on data. Product management makes decisions on what their customers do. Salespeople make decisions on who's buying what. Finance, very data-driven. They use Excel spreadsheets, and they're supposed to. Us as security people, we're not supposed to use spreadsheets unless we're doing some kind of financial analysis. So where is the equivalent for the security industry? Well, the first problem we need to think about is, what is a fundamental requirement of building a platform that understands data? Again, you can go back and you can just buy Hadoop and throw it down and put a lot of data in it, but Hadoop doesn't know how to analyze data. Only people know how to analyze data. So fundamentally, the thing that's missing from security, unlike sales and finance and other parts of your business, is an understanding of how to look at data, the methodology to which an analyst uses to make sense of data. And so there isn't a dozen choices here. There's people that talk about data structure. So there's things like sticks. There are various other standards around the world that look at data and the structure of data, but that's still missing an important ingredient, which is how data is managed, how you look at analyzing data. And so the one that some DFIR analysts use, hundreds I would say, it's not known around the world, this is definitely not known to everybody, is the diamond model of intrusion analysis, created right here in the DC area and within the Beltway, used by a lot of government agencies. And what this does is it allows you to make sense of the analytic process. And just like Salesforce had the plethora of people that knew how sales worked, this stands to be the platform or the foundation from a methodology perspective that we can all use to understand how to look at data. And so to give you a quick overview, my colleague Andy Pendergast is going to give a presentation tomorrow at 12:30 that will be very detailed about this, right down into like the algorithms and how the graph theory works behind it. But at a high level, it allows you to take all the data that you capture during incident response, security operations, threat intelligence processes, and make sense of it with relationships. And so it's got a technical access between the capabilities of the malware and the infrastructure that the adversary uses. And then it's got a geopolitical access, which is between the adversary and the victim. And a lot of people think of these as tactical and strategic intel. I would say it's easier just to think about it as it's all information that matters to you in decision making. And the term intel may be overused in this situation. It's data about what's happening to your business that you need to use to make better decisions. So the industry as a whole for the last year has been talking about a new type of platform that takes advantage of the fundamental principles that I just discussed, and they're calling it a threat intelligence platform. Again, the word threat intelligence I think is used differently by different people, but let me just bring it back to the requirements that I just talked about, and in particular the ability to capture data from various inputs, the ability to bring data in from email lists, from your security operations center, from your threat team, maybe you pay vendors for feeds, ability to collect all of that information and aggregate it is the first step of a threat intelligence platform. Second is you have to analyze it. Many people think you just buy threat intelligence and your problems all go away. It needs to be relevant to your organization in order to be useful, and the only way to make it useful and make it relevant is to actually look at it and understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. And there are different people that use that data in different ways. The CIO looks at the data within that platform differently than the threat analyst. The threat analyst is focused on the threat. The CIO may be focused on the threat analyst and how productivity is gained when they bring in new data sources or new automated types of capabilities. And finally, once all that data is analyzed, similar to the coal analogy, at the other end of the conveyor belt, you can't send it all out via email. That's not the right way to distribute new threat intelligence or new actions. Instead, the action side of this needs to be integrated directly into all the products you have. We don't need another security product, I would argue. We need a way to take all the data that we know as an organization from all the different sources that we get it from and push it into our existing security products. And once we do that, we're making them all smarter. But the next and really powerful thing is the feedback loop. So now we can start collecting information about the alerts and the action side of things, and we can start using that information to make better decisions about how we produce data. So this in fact is, so I'm a product company, I make decisions on what my customers need. I measure their interest and then I put investment behind that interest. It's no different in security. We need to have the feedback loop so that we can make better decisions about where to place our time and money. So a little bit more about aggregation. So aggregation is the first step in a threat intelligence platform. It's the ability to bring all your data in and start the manufacturing process to create something meaningful. It starts with your data. So you cannot go buy threat intelligence and have it solve all your problems. You need to look at your own problems first, make decisions about what it is that you really need, and then look at where you can get that information. So one of the big things for those that probably are aware of ThreatConnect is we're really big on community. We view community as being the highest fidelity source of threat intelligence that exists because it's real time. You literally can get information from your business partner in real time that says, I was just attacked by this particular adversary in this way with this malware and this infrastructure. And you can use that to defend yourself. And communities and sharing is the very best way to do that. Is it hard? Yes, it's very hard. People often talk about the legality of it, but it's happening. It's been happening for many years, but it was happening at a analyst level, at a, we drank too many rum and cokes last night level. And so it's happening today. It's just that the platforms and the capabilities, the technology is getting better at allowing people to do it more quickly and do it at scale using data and structure under the hood. So data services, this is the security vendor's dirty little secret. So data services are things that you can use to make your data smarter. And so things like passive DNS and active DNS and whois data and IPGeo, these are all data services that if you run your data through them, it comes back with new data. And that data can be used to make correlations, so you can have different incidents that are correlated by whois on the IPs or the host names that were used in the infrastructure of the attack. So maybe you don't know that this incident and this incident are the same until you look at the adversary infrastructure that was used between the two attacks. So data services are how the security companies create their own coal. They're mining their own coal and creating diamonds, and they're selling it to you. So create your own diamonds. And then finally, if you don't have the time to create your own diamonds and you can't build the automation to do it, you can buy that information or you can get it from open source sources. And there are lots of sources, and the new term now, every company's building a marketplace of intel sources. I would urge you to think about sources, but only after you understand your own data. Finally, you need to think about what kind of data you need first and foremost. Don't jump into, I'm just going to collect data from everywhere, because you're going to make it meaningless. It will mean nothing because you'll have too much of it. You won't be able to process it. It will be like dumping too much coal on the end of the conveyor belt and you don't get any diamonds. And so some of the things that you can't see because it's cut off are the types of threats you're interested in, the types of indicators themselves. Are you interested in strategic intel or tactical intel? If you're looking for tactical, do you have the ability to look for host names on the network or URLs, or does that not matter because you don't have a detection capability to even make use of it? So think about what your use cases are first. And then once you understand what you're looking for, then look at the various vendors or open source feeds that have that kind of information that you can bring it in. But only bring it in if you're going to use it, and only bring it in if it can be overlaid with the rest of your business. So a lot of talk about machine readable threat intelligence. Who here is familiar with STIX? All right, good. So more than one hand went up. STIX is kind of the new cool thing in this idea of threat intelligence. And so the reality is I need you all to be ambassadors of STIX. So I'm going to teach you a little something. And I'm hoping you're going to go out in the world and you're all going to tell 2 or 3 people, because we have a major problem as a security industry right now around this term, and that people think that STIX is a finished product. It's something you can just start using and everybody will be on the same page. That's not the case. So STIX is a super language for those that don't know. It's a language used to create other languages. Is it a standard? Yes. Is it a standard that is helpful? Yes. But it's similar to, for those that remember, electronic data interchange, EDI. It was a super language that every company could use to build a bridge between their companies. And the challenge was we ended up with millions of bridges. None of them were interoperable with each other, but they did work in providing a foundation to build the bridge. And so where we're at as a community right now with STIX is that STIX is a great starting point. It's there from a perspective of if I'm going to start taking XML and making it into something, it's the right thing for me to use. But where we're at is that everyone's doing that and saying I support Stix, but none of them are interoperable. Believe it or not, Stix is not interoperable out of the box. So when you guys head out of here on Sunday and you go back to your workplaces, just remind people that Stix needs work. We as a community need to go from vendor specific to Stix for SIM or Stix for IR, and it needs to be specific enough that we can actually all build the same things. So analyze, I don't have a whole lot of slides here. I just want to talk through a couple of these use cases. So analyze is the most important part of data. You pull in data from all these sources. It doesn't just analyze itself. You need to make use of it. And so when you think about the different use cases that security teams use data for, there are many. And I'm just going to talk you through a couple. So the first one is the threat intelligence production and fusion use case. So you are a Fortune 1000 company, you're in an ISAC, maybe you're in critical infrastructure, so you're good friends with Department of Homeland Security. You've got 5 analysts on your team. Each of them is part of a few fight clubs. They get data from there. And so in general, you have data coming from a variety of places, and you're looking for that data to mean something, to be usable. Second is you need to make it relevant to the stakeholders, which may require you to automate some of the processes, may incorporate some workflow. So for example, every time DHS sends an email that says, this is a critical vulnerability against SCADA system X, and you happen to have that system, you probably want to escalate the priority on that, get an analyst looking at it right away. Analysts today are not well organized. They don't know what to work on. They're discombobulated, and email is not the best way to prioritize what they're working on. So workflow is important, but maybe even more important than workflow is once they determine it's a risk to your organization or your network, the ability to bring action against that objective immediately. And that's where integrations come in. So a threat intelligence platform has to have an API. It has to be integrated into the security products you already have, so that you can suck in those indicators and start looking for them in real time within the network. And I'm going to talk through that a little bit more. Event and alert triage. So when you see an event from a SCADA system, just to keep my analogy, and that event has to do with the same exact indicator that DHS warned you about, and there's a high risk of the adversary that is behind that activity, you want to know about that right away. So in essence, SIM, it has a lot of alarms going off. Threat intelligence and database decisioning allows you to make decisions about priorities based on risk. And that's the thing that I think we can all agree that SIM never met up with that need completely. And so given the fact that we're conveying or analyzing risk within a threat intelligence platform, we also have the ability to correlate risk with real-time information, and the feedback loop, again, can start that intelligence cycle. Incident response support, I would see as being very similar to that. Incident responders should not, when they're creating a remedy ticket, be storing all the indicators in remedy and then having to go look in a wiki to see, have you ever seen that indicator before? They should create an incident, and the system should tell them that these indicators have been seen and these incidents with this degree of risk because there's a correlation with an adversary that's known by the organization. And then hunting. Hunting is a new term. I think a lot of larger companies that have threat teams are starting to proactively hunt for indicators or adversaries in their network. And the only reason I bring it up here is that it's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of communication and collaboration across the security team, because it's looking for an indicator. You find it, all right, well now I have to look for 5 more. If I find them, I need to analyze them. And so that triage process needs to be orchestrated in a better way than email. Finally, it's all about taking action. You can have the best data and the best understanding of risk. Unless you do something with it, it's going to be worthless. And so the first use case here that you can look at for a threat intelligence platform and this kind of data is making decisions. It's reporting, it's planning. And anytime you get involved in an organization that wants to be better, Amazon didn't just snap their fingers and say, we're going to be the world leader in shipping products all over the world. And they had to get better at that. They had to measure their effectiveness and improve. And the other thing to think about is not only as cybersecurity practitioners do we need to improve at understanding the threat, but we need to improve our processes in doing that. So incident response and threat intelligence production, those processes, the faster we do them, the more automation we bring to them, the better the return on investment and the faster we can move against our adversaries. And so it's all about planning, processing, making assumptions, modeling those assumptions, and then measuring it, and as quickly as we can, improving. So more exciting. People always want to focus on what am I going to find on my network? And so with a threat intelligence platform, one of the core use cases is what's called the watch list use case. This is the conveying of indicators from that analytic process or multiple processes in the action phase out to your network, so things are being searched for. This is just a screenshot of Splunk using indicators that have been put in one or more watch lists. And so this should be automated. As an incident responder starts processing an incident, you should be hunting for those indicators because you think they're bad. Maybe you don't block at that point, but you should definitely be hunting. There's various other watch list use cases other than just a SIEM. There's firewalls that look for hashes. There's host-based products. You should be able to build your own watch list based on the types of indicators that you're collecting, you're aggregating, you're analyzing, and then farm it out to the devices you have that can find that stuff on the network. Second is signatures. I know that signatures are not sexy anymore. It's all about behavioral analysis and a whole bunch of things that are effective if they're really good, but we're not sure how good they are. And so signatures are today used around the world to make use of indicators, make use of this data that we've analyzed. And that's not going to change anytime soon. What needs to change is the way that we manage signatures. So today you get that DHS report, you create a signature, and you put it into your device. What you don't know is that you actually had those indicators in another signature that you had already deployed 3 years ago. You just don't know because there's no correlation between the intel coming in or being created and the actual signatures that you've already deployed. Also, signature management is something that most organizations do with email. Maybe they have a wiki of some sort where they put a signature up and then the QA team pulls it down, looks at it, and then once they're ready, they deploy it. But it's a haphazard process. And so a threat intelligence platform should be able to take in intel, quickly determine the correlation between a existing signature and the new intel or the existing intel. It should be able to quickly determine where you're covered and where you're not, and then help the process of delivering that signature, including an API-based integration so that the Snort device or the Bro or the Yara device just sucks that signature up. Many of you likely have built a solution like this, but it's not for the less mature organizations that need more of an out-of-the-box experience. So finally, there's always going to be more analysis needed that can't be automated, and you really need humans to do it. And so a threat intelligence platform need not think about being the answer to world hunger. It doesn't need to be the SIEM. It doesn't need to be the visual analytics product. It needs to be the brain that everything else can tap into. And so these are just some screenshots from Maltego of an integration with a threat intelligence platform. You can see there are data groupings, and there are specific pieces of data that are stored, and you can be analyzed using some kind of visual analytic product. And then you can drill into the specifics of all of that information and pivot around. And this is for the relationship that only a person can understand. And this is why a threat intelligence platform needs to merge automation and people, because there is no way to, again, snap our fingers and start creating diamonds based on our organization. So in summary, it's all about aggregating, analyzing, and acting on the data you have. Big data is definitely a really helpful thing, but I think most of us feel like a form factor like this is probably the starting point, and something that will be more useful in the short term. So, questions? I can't answer that. Any questions? Was this helpful? Was this presentation shitty or? All right, good.